Good evening. Welcome to the Tibet Center. We shall begin by reciting the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. Now we'll recite the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas, called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the Dhammas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age or death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth. For there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisattva. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that Samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, "Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice." When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering of the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the blessed one. And now we generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Today, in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So, last week I gave some homework to do. How did it go?
That is really great. It was really.
No, not just that. I asked everyone to see things as being dependently arisen and think about how that dependence negates any possibility of the inherent quality that we attribute to phenomena. Did you go around looking at...
Watch our focus. They're dependent.
It works until someone steps on your foot.
That's right.
No, that's when you're supposed to, that's when you're supposed to do your practice.
That's the Zen master
That's why
giving
you spend all
you...
this time
Oh,
practicing.
that's what-
It's like a person who just goes up to ski things but doesn't ski down.
So,
That's why you cook the meal, now it's time to eat the meal.
what?
No, now you cook the meal, it's time to eat. That's, when you get these people pressure butt, that's the time to do your practice.
So is there a meal? When you looked among the
Metaphorical
parts?
meal. It's the enrichment of reducing your forces, hopefully.
So, in this process of walking around and viewing things, looking at the tree and saying, the tree is composed of all these parts, and actually, it's not that there's a tree there, there are all these parts upon which I give the name tree. That was the homework. And I must tell you, I'm a photographer, okay? I dress up as a monk and I do all the sort of monkish stuff, but basically, good evening. I'm a photographer, and as I try to justify walking around with a camera, I try to do this exercise. And not only am I looking at the objects that I'm photographing and saying to myself, well, this is, the tree is, as I say, composed of the leaves and the branches, and therefore, it's not that I doubt the existence of the tree there, but that inherent treeness, I'm working at doubting. I'm really struggling to. And so going around with a camera and actually bringing this exercise into the process of photographing helps. And when you're photographing, you you can take photography as being that, what you're aiming the camera at. You say, that's my picture, and it's whatever, the corner of the Bowery and Houston Street. But actually, the photograph is not that. The photograph is my composition of the elements that are out there into something. And not only is the photograph dependent on the elements that are there, it's also dependent on where I put the camera and how I frame it and what height I'm at and the moment that I take it. All those elements, so that the photograph is this sort of dance of all these elements, and I find that helpful in first of all, justifying taking pictures, and second of all, in thinking about these things, because as we have been discussing over the last few weeks, this natural way in which we interact with the world, attributing an objective quality to the phenomena that we see, not just see, hear, feel, whatever. That is so natural, that is so instinctive, and to break that down, to really go beyond that, is a task. This whole section of the Lamrim is the identification of the object to be negated. The object to be negated is this quality of independent existence of self, but also of the phenomena that we apprehend. And so this exercise is really, it's very deep, it's very valuable, it's very helpful in our breaking down the way that we are so totally naturally involved with the world and with ourselves. And it's not simply an exercise that's part of Buddhism. It's not an exercise that is, we've been studying the Lamrim for many, many years. The Lamrim being this treatise on the graded stages of the path to enlightenment. And within the Lamrim, there are all sorts of subjects that are dealt with. But the essence, the most important, is this. This is really the fundamental teaching of Tsongkhapa. I mean, Tsongkhapa wrote this poem in praise of dependent arising, in which he expresses his delight, it's like an epiphany that he's expressing in this poem, in which he's talking about the Buddha's teaching on dependent arising. And dependent arising, the fact that things arise dependently, is possible due to their being empty of this object to be negated, empty of any kind of intrinsic objective existence. And and this particular method of understanding that emptiness of intrinsic existence, this dependent arising, it's considered the king of reasoning. It's considered the ultimate way by which we can actually not just understand, but eventually develop a realization of emptiness, of inherent existence. And this is not simply a mental exercise that we do along the way. The recognition of the emptiness of inherent existence. First of all, the identification of what this inherent existence is, the recognition that all phenomena are empty of that quality. That realization leads to freedom from suffering. That realization leads to the goal of the whole Buddhist path. The nut that we are aiming at, that has to be removed, is that quality of inherent existence that we come to negate by means of the recognition of the dependent arising of phenomena. So I want to stress that as we really labor this particular subject, we're doing so because this is the essence of the whole Buddhist path. So to relate that to the text, good evening. Poor Darren, I give him a thank you so much. Gosh, I'm going to get drunk with all these just water and
The bar is open.
dark prune juice. Okay. So, for anyone who has the book, does anyone have you have the book? You have the book. No, I have the book. So we're on page 138 of volume 3 of the Lamrim Chenmo. So we I don't know, I sort of, we went beyond, this is where we reached in New Jersey last week, right?
Yes, because my mom was.
Repeated,
This is repeated over and over and over the years. Don't worry.
So chapter 11, we'll start at the beginning of chapter 11. Chapter 11 is titled Dependent Arising and Emptiness. And here, Tsongkhapa is really showing us that emptiness, dependent arising means emptiness. Emptiness means dependent arising. When we talk about emptiness, we're talking about emptiness of inherent existence. And when things are dependently arisen, they lack inherent existence. And when we work at identifying the object to be negated, we are working at identifying inherent existence. We're working at identifying that quality which doesn't exist, but that we attribute to phenomena. And we do so instinctively. We have done so since times immemorial, and we do so even once we've understood intellectually, even once we've developed a realization, a deep realization of emptiness, we still attribute, no, we may cease to attribute a quality of inherent existence. However, inherent existence appears to our eye consciousness. If I look and see Michael and I identify Michael, there will be, in my identification of Michael, there will be a quality of inherent existence to you, sir. But if I take all the parts of, I won't find any Michael, imagine. So that quality of inherent existence is non-existent, but it does appear, even once I have an understanding and a realization of it. So it's extremely deep. So in this chapter, Tsongkhapa is really pushing us to explore the way in which something's being dependently arisen naturally negates the possibility of something's existing inherently. And it really developing an understanding of what inherent existence is difficult. I use the word, we think about it, but that quality that we attribute to things, that quality that we attribute to ourselves when we think, I think Nikki, I have this idea of me, and there's a certain I have a feeling of who I am. I have uh, a sense of me that seems to transcend the limbs. I mean, if I hurt my hand, it's my hand. The me possesses the hand, and that sense of me is very deep. So I'm saying all these things because these are sort of pointers at what this inherently existent quality of self is, which, as I say, don't forget, doesn't actually exist. How is it that all of cyclic existence and nirvana is possible in a system that asserts emptiness? So, what Tsongkhapa is introducing is the idea that the only way in which cyclic existence, the samsara, the situation we find ourselves, and nirvana, freedom from cyclic existence, that these are only possible in a system that asserts emptiness of inherent existence. As I will explain below, proponents of the view that all things are empty of intrinsic existence argue that this is possible by reason of things arising in dependence on causes and conditions. So things are empty of inherent existence due to the fact that they arise in dependence on causes and conditions. This being the case, dependent arising is tenable within emptiness of intrinsic existence, and when dependent arising is tenable, suffering is also tenable. So what Tsongkhapa is doing is taking the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha taught, and he's saying the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering or the cause of suffering, the truth of cessation, the truth of the path. All of those things are exist due to the fact that they are dependent arisings, due to the fact that they are empty of inherent existence. This is also tenable, for suffering may be attributed only to what arises in dependence on causes and conditions. So suffering, the first noble truth. So for everyone, the first thing that the Buddha taught upon attaining enlightenment, when he attained enlightenment, when he had this epiphany, this realization of emptiness that he brought to this very, very, very profound point, or that he experienced with as subtle a mind as possible. When he realized this, when he attained the ultimate state of what's called the path of no more learning, Buddhahood, he looked around and he thought, no one's going to understand what I have to say. And then eventually he taught the truth of suffering. Well, the truth of suffering only arises a dependence on causes and conditions. It cannot be attributed to what does not arise dependently. When true suffering exists, then the origins, the causes from which it arises, the cessation that is the stopping of that suffering, and the paths leading to those cessations are tenable. Thus, all Four Noble Truths exist. When the Four Noble Truths exist, then it is possible to understand, to eliminate, and to actualize the first three truths, respectively, and it is possible to cultivate the true paths. When such practices exist, then everything, the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and so forth, is tenable. As Chandrakirti's clear word says, for those to whom this emptiness of intrinsic existence of all things makes sense, everything that has been mentioned also makes sense. Why? Because we call dependent arising emptiness. Thus, dependent arising makes sense in a system in which emptiness makes sense. And the Four Noble Truths are reasonable for those to whom dependent arising makes sense. Why? Because only what arises dependently can be suffering, not what does not arise dependently. Since what arises dependently lacks intrinsic existence, intrinsic nature, it is empty. I hope this isn't empty.
That's such a cool argument. He kind of backward engineers.
Tsongkhapa, yeah. He engineers back and forth and back and forth. He seems to be repeating, but he's really immersing us in this idea of emptiness and and lack of inherent existence.
Reverse engineering. Yeah.
Well, he's getting more subtle points and more subtle points each time he reintroduces it or other points, but none of this would work without dependent arising. We would only have the first truth. If there was any, and there would be no way to get out of it. And Buddha would be impossible. We'd be
So,
stuck in suffering.
what you are saying, none of the sort of practices would be possible. So just to wrap our minds more around the idea of inherent existence, if what did I? To exist inherently is to exist by way of one's own essential nature. If things existed inherently, if things existed objectively, if things existed in the sort of the way they appear to exist, they couldn't change. They wouldn't have the sort of dynamic ability to in any way change. The whole idea of something's being composed of parts is possible due to the fact that it's not fixed. Its lack of fixedness is what makes things possible. And due to the fact that things come about by causation, if you don't have the cause, you won't have the result. If you remove the cause, you remove the result. If the result is suffering, is painful, and if you remove the cause of that pain, you're not going to suffer. So the whole possibility of a path to freedom from suffering is only possible because suffering is caused, is a dependent arising, which, if you remove the cause, comes to an end.
Nikki, does that apply equally to naming things, like we name a dog and a cat are different, and then we explain that they are different?
So, naming is a very interesting process because we name, instead of talking about, if you have a cat, we at the Tibet Center have a cat named Buddy. Okay, so, but let's not even get into that particular cat. a fluffy animal of a certain sort, we call a cat. So the naming of that cat is a convention. You know, when those parts, when whatever the basis, the sort of common basis for uh, um, calling something a cat is there, we call it a cat. So the naming, it's only a cat because we name it a cat. The name is from our side. The cat is just a bunch of parts, physical and mental, that acts in a certain way. And when that particular bunch of parts acts, has certain characteristics, we conventionally say, "Oh, that's a cat." So I'm giving you that as the basis upon which to present your question. How?
And that would apply equally to a dog or a horse or any other animal that we give a name to, so that we better understand the differences.
Yes, but the differences, we can call a cat a dog, we can call a dog a cat. The those are conventions. We are giving the name cat. We are all agreeing that we will call a certain feline species that is, you know, limited between, I don't know, mountain cats and cheetahs and whatever. There's a particular little segment within the feline world that we say, oh, that's a cat. We all agree that when something, but it's not that there's a catness among its parts. It's that we give the name, we attribute the label cat to those, to that dependent arising, the parts. Is that?
Well, I think the issue is not the labeling of it. It's what you, if you just nominally just take it as, oh, this is cat, it's when you start giving the self-existent quality as the pitfall.
Yes, but that happens right away. That happens as soon as you give the name cat to
Still
it.
innately.
Yeah. Then yes, we develop attachment or aversion, or whatever.
What about a strong feeling for this?
So that's why, you know, though along the spiritual path, the real object that we are working at understanding the dependent arising quality of is me. Um, However, we practice. We see that this tendency, and it's, you know, when I see something that I think has a certain fine quality, you know, a good camera, for example, uh, I can say, oh, that's, and I attribute a quality, and out of that comes a desire, attachment. His Holiness talks about. We can see how this varies. He says you go into a shop that sells watches. His Holiness, this is His Holiness the Dalai Lama is very fond of watches. Go into a shop, and you see a very fine watch, and as you're looking at it, it falls on the floor, and you think, oh, and then that's so you can see how you have this sort of sense of feeling of it. But if you buy it, and once you've bought it, it's yours, and it falls on the ground, then he said it's as if your heart were coming out of your mouth. It's a whole other level of feeling. That's all attachment. That's um, so. Now, of course, the timepiece helps you in life. It's a tool. It's a mechanical device that, and if we can view it as simply a timepiece without getting attached to it, if we can see through this, the qualities that we attribute to it, then if it falls, we fix it, and if it's broken badly, then we have to get another one or whatever. And it's the whole attachment to it, that sort of emotional relationship, comes from our attributing some quality that doesn't actually exist among its parts. And that's not only true for things; it's true for people, uh, and this. This, I mean, I know that there are a few mothers here. Uh, we talk about the love that a mother has for her child as being a very special love that comes out of, concern, but there is this element of attachment that again His Holiness talks about, and the quality of love that we are working at developing towards others is far greater when we can see through the quality of inherent existence that we attribute to even our child. It's not that we will love our child less upon having seen him or her as being empty of inherent existence. On the contrary, we will love the child as much, but we will be able to love all children. I remember someone asking Chungla Rinpoche to pray for someone, and I was the messenger who conveyed the request for prayers to Rinpoche. And he said, "Of course, I pray for all sentient beings." And it was wonderful because it was, I'm not sure that the person who was requesting the prayers wanted to be just one among the infinite sentient beings that he was praying for, but it was a little lesson to me in what we are aiming towards. Okay. So to get back to, so here this is Chandakirti. Once there is suffering, then the origins of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the paths leading to the cessation of suffering all make sense. Therefore, through understanding of suffering, elimination of origins, actualization of cessations, and cultivation of paths also make sense. When there's thorough understanding, etc., of the truths, suffering, etc., then it makes sense that there will be spiritual results. Once there are results, then it makes sense that there are people who have achieved those results. This, in turn, implies the possibility of people who are approaching those results. Once there are people who are approaching and achieving these results, then the community is possible. Here, Tsongkhapa is talking about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Starting with the Sangha, they are the people who are implementing the Dharma and achieving results. When the noble truths exist, then the sublime teaching also makes sense. And when the sublime teaching and community exist, then the Buddhas are possible. So that you have the people who are implementing the practice. They are the Sangha, the spiritual community. The fact that implementation of the Dharma, the doctrine, is possible and brings about results is due to dependent arising and lack of inherent existence. They are not fixed in a certain way. They evolve as a result of their practice, which means that the practice, the Dharma, the doctrine, is possible. The tools by which we implement and by which we bring about these changes in us are possible, and thereby the attainment of the ultimate goal of Buddhahood is possible if we implement the Dharma, the doctrine, the teachings. So there are two sort of ways of seeing the Dharma. The Dharma is, this is the Dharma, this is the doctrine of the Buddha. But it's the realizational Dharma, that it's the our taking this and implementing it in our minds that is the true Dharma, the implementation of this these practices that bring about the results, which are ultimately the attainment of Buddhahood. So all the mechanism that I just described, the possibility, the practice of the Sangha by implementing the Dharma in order to bring about the attainment of Buddhahood, all of that is possible due to the fact that uh, all these elements are dependently arisen and are empty of inherent existence. All profound knowledge of everything mundane and supramundane makes sense. The proper and improper conduct, the results of that happy and miserable results, and all worldly conventions make sense as well. Therefore, in that way, Nagarjuna says, for those to whom emptiness makes sense, everything makes sense. If emptiness did not make sense, then dependent arising would not exist, and so nothing would make sense. Therefore, you should understand that what makes sense and what does not make sense here refers to whether those things exist. As cited earlier, an objection by essentialists appears in Nagarjuna's refutation of objects. So now, we have dealt with this initial presentation of dependent arising, making the fact that things are empty of inherent existence and are dependent arisings is what makes everything make sense. So there are people who object, and the real objection is if we are saying that things lack inherent existence, aren't we thereby negating their existence altogether? And that's it's very easy for us to say, no. There's a difference. Lacking inherent existence is not the negation of existence altogether. There's a difference. But actually, when we're talking about this quality of inherent existence, we're talking about something extremely subtle. And the great philosophers, the great Buddhist philosophers, who took issue with Chandrakirti's interpretation of Nagarjuna's philosophy on the middle way, were saying you can't say that something does not exist inherently and then attribute an existence to that phenomenon. Some things, if you say that something lacks inherent existence, you are negating the possibility of that phenomenon's existence altogether. Something cannot exist if it doesn't exist inherently. Inherent existence is a quality of existence, they say. So this view is, we can say, well, they don't get the point. However, Tsongkhapa is really introducing something far more subtle than I think that we can easily understand. Tsongkhapa is also introducing a very natural way in which we view things. It's very understandable. It's very natural to consider that I'm looking at this watch in front of me, and as soon as I see the watch, I mean, there's a watch there. I have no doubt that there's a watch there. It has an objective quality of existence before me. Here it is. Objectively existent watch before me. It's a swatch. It was made in Switzerland. It's plastic, but it has a certain quality. I attribute all these qualities to it, and I'm quite sure that there is a. Oh, you want to see it?
Make sure it doesn't fall.
So, sorry.
Make sure it doesn't fall. It's yours.
Well, if it was an inherent watch, would time change?
So what I'm talking about is the quality that we naturally attribute to it, and Tsongkhapa is now going to work at sort of attacking this quality that we feel must exist if the phenomenon exists. If there's a watch there, it must exist inherently. And as you just said, there are logical flaws in that proposition. If it existed inherently, could it keep time? Could it actually change? Could it be a watch? Could it do the job that we give the name watch to? So
Is this argument you just posited the same one Bobby Baker would give? This is much more subtle.
Bhava Viveka is the real, from my understanding of it, he is talking about a quality of inherent existence in a syllogism, in other words, in the sort of logical reason by which you bring about an inferential realization of emptiness. And so it's a very subtle quality of existence that he holds on to. But yes, the debate between Bhava Viveka and Buddha Palita is really hinges on the difference between true existence that is being negated by both Buddha Palita and Bhava Viveka, and inherent existence that Bhava Viveka says you can't throw out that one, because if you do, you're throwing out the phenomenon altogether. And Buddha Palita, who's saying, no, that's actually what Nagarjuna was negating. Okay, we're getting very technical. I'm sorry, but I'm answering your question, and I remember a teacher of mine saying, in addressing this, and I think I've used this example a few times. When we look in the corner and we see a rope, and we think it's a snake, and as long as we impute or see that or as a snake, we have a fear of it. However, as soon as we see it as a rope, we realize that it can't bite, it has no poison or whatever. So the difference between its being a snake, I'm sorry, I'm looking in that corner. That's the corner where the snake is. So until we conceive that it is not actually a snake, but is merely a rope, we're going to be afraid. As soon as we see that it is a rope, the fear goes. So what Buddha Bhava Viveka would say, hence there is a quality of snakeness to the snake, and it can bite. The there is a lack of snakeness in the rope, it doesn't bite. It's not sentient.
And that would be Bobby Baker's argument to prove that
To prove that there must be a quality of inherent existence.
Because that snake would do it.
Exactly. So think about that. As I say, we can come along and we say, no. I mean, we can understand that if something is dependently arising, it is not inherently existent. How can these realists attribute a quality of inherent existence to phenomena? It's more subtle than that. It's very subtle. So that's what Tsongkhapa is presenting here. Therefore, the master Nagarjuna, therefore you should understand that what makes sense and what does not make sense here refers to, okay, we've gone beyond that. As cited earlier, an objection by essentialists appears in Nagarjuna's refutation of objections. If all things are completely without intrinsic nature, then your words also lack intrinsic nature and thus cannot refute intrinsic existence. So here they are saying that these essentialists are saying that things have no ability to act, they have no they cannot function if they don't exist inherently. The words by which you express yourself would not exist if they did not exist inherently. The Master Nagarjuna clearly answers that functionality is tenable within the context of the absence of intrinsic existence. So the ability for things to function is not just tenable, is depends upon their being absent of inherent existence. We propound that the dependent arising of things is called emptiness. That which arises dependently has no intrinsic nature. But so we're coming to the end of our time here, and I just wanted to say something before we stop. So maybe we'll stop here. Tonight, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is meant to be giving an Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig initiation online at, it'll start around 7:30. I don't know exactly India time, which is about 9:30, 10 o'clock our time. And we're living in a time when to receive a tantric initiation into a practice such as Avalokiteshvara, who is the manifestation of compassion, is extraordinary. And it's here we are talking about dependent arising and emptiness, and the whole basis for the tantric practice that His Holiness is going to initiate us into is that we exist empty of inherent existence. And if we can, out of great compassion, out of a wish to be of benefit to others, if we can develop some kind of a mental understanding of emptiness, and we can use those thoughts, the motivation of great compassion, wanting to attain Buddhahood to help others, and realization of our emptiness. If that mental attitude can arise in the form of this sort of symbolic representation of great compassion, and if we can then, in that state, recite the mantra of compassion, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, that becomes a very powerful force for good. And it is that His Holiness is going to introduce tonight, introduce us to, initiate anyone who's interested into. And I was telling some friends here about how there were those who doubted whether an initiation could actually be bestowed online by means of Zoom or whatever. And there were some Tibetan lamas who took issue with the fact that His Holiness was going to be bestowing a tantric initiation online. And His Holiness went forward with the initiation. And at the time of the initiation, said, I'm quite convinced that if I am qualified to give the initiation, and if I have performed the ritual correctly, and if you are qualified to receive the initiation and are receiving it with the right motivation, etc., if the intent is there on both sides, if the intentions are pure, that you will receive the initiation that I bestow. And based on that, I feel quite confident that if you go home and sit before your computers or phones or whatever, you can go to dalailama.com. You can receive this extraordinary blessing, and be introduced to this extraordinary practice where His Holiness will instruct you what to think and how to think, and then you recite this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, which is, as I say, the mantra of compassion. And he may explain the meaning of the mantra, and you do so really thinking about many of the things that we've been discussing over the last few weeks. The motivation should be to engage in a practice in order to be of benefit to others, in order to attain a state where we can be of greater benefit to others. The practice, the method by which we arrive there is recognizing our emptiness of inherent existence, remaining focused on that lack of inherent existence, and that focus on that lack of inherent existence that is motivated by this great compassion, wishing to become a Buddha in order to help others, is what manifests as this representation of compassion. So I hope that you will, those of you who are interested, will take this opportunity, because in the past, these great lamas would come to New York, or we would travel to India, and now we can do it at home. And the quality of the experience is in your hands. Thank you. So we will end by reciting the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels, and we have been asked to pray for Claude.
And also Ed Young.
Ed Young.
Yeah.
Claude and Ed Young.
Also Diane Feinstein.
And
Yeah,
also
definitely.
Diane Feinstein.
Definitely heard.
What was the guy used to make all the pastries and cakes away from the garden years ago? The tartatans and all those things. We used to have croissant set on his kind of Claude stuff. He's gone.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, our stomachs is not.
I prostrate
To the omniscient one.
Thus the Buddha Bhagavad Tathagata Arhat Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, The teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from his skandhas. He is not possessed with the dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He is crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the Bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavad, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Jnana, they enter completely. They enter insightfully. They enter straightforwardly. They enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are filled with glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and wisdom. I prostrate to the Tathagata, pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Sangha, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore, the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. Thank you. Tomorrow night we will have class in New Jersey, 501 North Ridgewood Road, South Orange, New Jersey. You are welcome.
Role model.